Hello and welcome to another video from oorail. So this video we're going to show you some of the prep work and give you a quick look at this new project that we're working on. It's a third rail substation. As you know, we have a third rail line that takes up quite a portion of the original part of the layout and goes all the way through the interim part of the layout and over to the other section, which is phase 2. So this particular substation is based off the ones that you'll find on the Kent Coast line. I actually picked up a book, which is the Kent Coast Electrification first phase. I got this off of eBay. It's from 1959, and you can see there it's part of the British Railways modernization documentation from a long time ago. And basically, it was a publication telling all about the third rail electrification along the Kent Coast line. So what I did was inside that actual booklet or publication, it basically had several photos of various infrastructure along the line, and one of them was this substation. So I was able to use Google Maps to find a substation, get an approximation on the actual size of the building, and then I was able to use the brickwork as well to figure out the height and the width and so on. So I feel at this point that the research I've done on it and the sort of dimensions of it are pretty accurate. It might be a little bit off, but nothing crazy. It's definitely going to be about as accurate as you normally get for a model railway building. So in this video, what I wanted to do is just kind of give you guys a quick introduction to it. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be building out various different parts of this particular product line, which is the third rail electrification. So there's quite a lot of little detailing pieces that you just can't buy, including a substation, as well as things like track paralleling huts and stuff like that. So on a third rail line, you would have a substation like this, and then in between the substations, which I think were every 2 or 3 miles apart, you would have track paralleling huts that sort of had some components in it that would sort of act as an interim along the line. I think it was maybe for a feedback loop. Anyway, so what these will work with is we'll have a couple of these on the third rail line, as well as the track paralleling huts, and there are a couple of different styles of these, and they kind of got intermixed. I think this particular style was primarily used on the Kent Coast line, and the buildings are still there. You can find them on Google Maps. And what I'll do is over the next couple of weeks, I'll put together a project page on the oorail site, so you guys can follow along in more detail if you're interested in it. So this particular building took about a day and a half to print. It's in 2 parts. This upper part here basically will have some vents that I have yet to 3D print, and they basically just glues on with PVA glue. The second part is printed upside down, and it prints as a complete building. As you can see there, it's got the 3D printing lines up or down it. Didn't use a ton of PLA. I think it used a couple hundred grams, so it was like maybe $2 or $3 in total cost to print it out. You may see some holes here. These are actually for vents, and just like on the low relief houses for the railway side terrace line from Trackside 3D, these will have drop-in vents that you can just put in, and they'll just clip in and you can glue them in place. Likewise with the door here that's on the end. Now this is one of the oil drums for the rectifying transformer. So this would typically be placed with a transformer, and then it would be connected to the line. Usually there's a couple of outlets that would plug into the line. The detailing parts to connect this building to the third rail, as well as the rectifying transformer, are actually currently being 3D printed, along with the track paralleling huts. So over the next couple of days, you should see some photos and stuff like that on the Trackside 3D and oorail sites, as well as on our Facebook and Instagram and so on. So keep an eye out for that. One of the things that you might notice about the video is it's a little bit brighter. The reason for that is I've put a 1000 lumen strip light mounted directly above what I was working on. I do have this other mounted light that's up here, but several people pointed out that some of my videos were a little bit dark, so hopefully this will fix the problem. You may also notice that I don't have the head down view today. What I've done is I've mounted the GoPro off to the side here. And it's sort of like if you're a little kid looking over and seeing what's being done on the workbench. So it's at that kind of height. So hopefully you'll be able to see exactly what's going on and be able to follow along. If not, we'll put back the overhead view as well, or if you want both, we can probably do that. So anyway, in today's video, what we're going to do is we're just going to paint the top part here, and this is in kind of a concrete. I thought about using the aged concrete, but the more I looked at it, I think just regular flat concrete will work just as well. Now the second part of the video, which will show you this being placed on the layout and so on, we're also going to use spray adhesive. And the reason we're going to use spray adhesive is basically lightly use spray adhesive on each of the walls here, and we're going to use cut out pieces of brickwork. These are downloadable brickwork from scale scenes, which I use quite regularly. They have some of the best texture papers that you can download, and it's send it to 3D printer and off you go. Most of the stuff I've got, with exception of 1 or 2 walls, is scale scenes, and it works really well. So I would recommend checking them out. Alright, so without any further ado, we're going to get rolling with some paint, and this isn't going to take very long, hopefully. So first thing I'm going to do is just shake this up, and then we're going to mix it up. You can see here the concrete is basically a concrete color. I'm going to go ahead and mix it with a cocktail stick just for good measure, and then just make sure there's no, try to get as even as possible. Alright, and so what I typically do is I'll just wipe it along the top here so I'm not wasting paint. It looks very similar to the aged concrete, so I think it'll be pretty okay in terms of how it's going to look. So this is going to take a little while because it's already a small paintbrush. I could use a bigger paintbrush, but I'm not going to bother doing that. This kind of gives me a little bit more control, and let's hopefully it turns out pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep painting this. I don't know if I'm going to fast forward it or if I'm just going to do a time lapse. I don't think people need to sit here and watch me paint for 20 minutes, but you can get kind of a good idea of how this is going to work out by looking at this. So it looks like it's going to work out pretty well. You may see there's some lines here on the print. That's actually caused by the gap in the tape. So sometimes depending on which 3D printer I'm using, I will use some masking tape or some painter's tape to help it adhese. I've discovered that creates this bit of a line. For this type of building, it's actually kind of prototypical, so it's not really a big deal. If you didn't like it there, you can simply print straight to the print bed. You may have some problems with the print bed getting print off if you don't get to it as soon as it's finished. Sometimes you'll have to heat it back up, and you could possibly warp the print. So I prefer using the tape and dealing with any kind of issues with tape lines. You can see there's another one right there, but they're barely noticeable, and if you get the tape on the right way and as close as possible, those gaps are usually not very noticeable. Alright, so I'm going to keep painting this. You can see I'm working on the top here. I'm also going to paint the side here just like we did with some of the other buildings. And it doesn't matter if I get some of the paint on the upper part of the wall here, and we're going to simply put the brickwork on it. You also notice that I sanded this down, and I didn't completely sand it down for a good reason. The reason for that is I wanted it to kind of have this kind of worn look with the concrete. As you know, the concrete isn't always smeared to the top of buildings as it's been weathered over time, and so this kind of gives it that kind of look, which is pretty unique and pretty neat. Alright, so I'm going to keep going. I'll go ahead and paint all of this, and we'll show you the end result. Okay, so that didn't take very long. We've got it pretty much painted up. So you can see here, this side here is starting to dry. The stair is still a little bit wet, likewise in here. And what I did do was I painted all the way around the vented system up here, mainly because when I put the kind of vents that clip in here. You will be able to see into the upper part, so I figured might as well just paint the whole thing and then fill in the details as well later on. You can see it's turned out pretty nicely. You can still see there's a bit of a print line down through here from the tape, and like I said, you can get away from those by simply not using the tape and printing straight to the print bed. Otherwise, it's turned out pretty well. What I'm going to do is put a second coat on the top here, and then once all that dries, I'm going to use the spray adhesive and go ahead and put the texture paper around the outside that I've printed from scale scenes. So I think it'll turn out pretty well. It's a nice sized building. It's going to fit right in there in front of the station area by the level crossing and the parts of the video that you've seen over Christmas. Alright, so I'm going to go and let that dry, and then I'll apply a second coat, and then I'm going to go and see how the 3D printing is doing for the rectifier transformer, as well as some of the other detailing components. And so in the next video, we'll show you how to put it on a layout, all the extra bits have been added on, and how to add in those details. But just want to give you guys a kind of a preview of what's coming. We do have, like I said, I just finished tonight designing up the track paralleling hut, as well as some of the components like the rectifier, transformer, and some of the other electrical components to add some detailing. So it should give folks a very good way to model Southern third rail. So hopefully you guys will look forward to that. Alright, so if there's anything you'd like us to add to this particular line with the third rail, just put in the comments below, or contact locoshed at oorail.com. And hopefully we'll have this out in a couple of days where you can download it as well. Alright, so that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time.